I have talked about playing the flute under emotional stress, but I haven't really talked about physically what happens to me, at least, when I am under emotional or like physical stress. The first time I really experienced this was when I was a teenager. So I have mentioned before on this channel that my dad had a stress-induced heart attack when I was 16. He's fine now. He's totally fine. Everything's great. He did recover well from that, but there was a hot minute when we really thought he was going to die. You know, it's stressful. That kind of thing does a number on you physically. There was one morning when I was in university, woke up in the morning, and the first thing I hear my mom say is, "Oh, everything is going to the right, but I'm fine." She sounded completely drunk, and my mom doesn't get drunk, okay? I had never heard her slur her words like that before. I went from lazy student laying in bed trying to get the last few seconds of sleep I possibly can to like bolting up in bed. I was like, what the heck is wrong with my mom? There is something wrong with my mom. My brother also like bolted out of bed and was like, "Mom, like what's going on? Are you okay?" She's downstairs preparing coffee, but like seriously, like there is something wrong with her. I had to go catch a bus to get to school. My brother didn't have to go to school immediately, so he watched over my mom, but was like frantically calling my dad because my dad was already at work. And immediately my dad was like, "You need to take her to the hospital like right now." My brother eventually got my mom to go to the hospital, but I think my mom was in like complete denial that there was anything wrong with her. Mom, I know you're watching this video right now, and we were freaked out, man, okay? I hold a lot of pride in like not checking my phone when I'm in a lecture. When I'm in a lecture or if I'm in a seminar, I at least try to be like 100% there. This was actually in Dr. Bob's class when I received a text from my mom. So she's like literally in the car with my brother, and I get a text from her saying, "Oh, I'm going to the hospital right now." And I'm like, what? Without saying what I was doing or where I was going, I got up in the middle of class and I left. Texted my mom, called my mama, like, "What's going on? You're going to the hospital now?" Like, because at that point I didn't know that she was being taken to the hospital. So she's like slurring her words over the phone, like, "Yeah, your brother is taking me to the hospital." As it turns out, we found out that she had what's called a TIA, which is essentially, it's like a mini stroke. That was stressful. There's been a whole lot of other stressful things that have happened in my life too. A lot of moving around. Moving from one country to another, even if it's from the US to Canada or Canada to the US, is absolutely insane. Already, if you're moving within the same country, there's a lot of stuff that you already have to start from scratch. Everything that you've taken for granted, you have to think about. Even things like taking the garbage out. Oh, I have to call the garbage company to close my account here, but then you have to reopen another garbage thing, account thing at your new place. You have to stop your internet here, but then you have to reconnect it at your new place. All these things that you take for granted, you have to redo them. There's so much, and it's incredibly stressful. This place that I'm staying in is also not permanent. I know that a big move is coming up soon again. That's kind of looming over my head. So I know I'm gonna have to go through the entire process all over again. Once you've moved a few times, like you know what the process is gonna be, but you also know how stressed you're going to be. I just wanted to tell a few of these stories just to give you guys a quick glimpse into what it's like being that stressed. Every single time a stressful thing like this happens to me, I get very similar side effects while playing the flute. I will not support. Support goes way out the window. I push everything from my throat, which is not what you want to do because it's almost like you're gulping the sound out backwards, if that makes sense. You end up having throat noises while you play. It's very messy. It doesn't sound good. It sounds very strangled. That's the first thing that goes. I start playing like this, slouched over like this, which does a pretty bad number to you. When you slump forward, usually your head goes forward too. And there was this Alexander technique class that I attended years ago now. Essentially what they mentioned was that your head is actually really, really heavy. It's like a bowling ball. So if you think about it, if you like jut your neck forward, your neck is basically now holding up a bowling ball, which is really heavy. Of course, that's why you would get a lot of tension in your neck. Everything's caved inward, which actually causes a lot of tension in your like shoulder blade area. Plus you're collapsing your lungs so you can't breathe as much. Plus I'm not supporting. So on top of pushing from here, I'm not actually getting enough air in, and I'm not pushing enough air out. My breath control just completely goes out the window. My tone gets really fuzzy and airy and tight, and not in a good way. On top of that, because I'm playing like this now, my balance with the flute in terms of holding the flute up also gets knocked out of alignment. When you hold your flute up like this, the balance is very different than when you hold it like this. The points of contact, like the angle changes a little bit. I end up claw gripping the flute, which is awful. When you play like this with claws, you can't play as fast. You should play with more like relaxed fingers that are naturally curved. Plus the tension just keeps going up and up and up. I get really tired really quickly. The worse your tone and your technique get, the more you feel like you need to push to make it sound good. The harder you push though, the harder, for me at least, I'm pushing from my throat, which just makes it sound worse. I think it's like my body's last ditch effort to make the sound better. I end up tonguing really hard. One of the tricks to tonguing more lightly is if you tongue thinking of it as a release rather than as an attack. But when I'm stressed, I just attack like this, just ta 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 ta. And the tonguing becomes like my substitute for my support. So on top of the tone itself being really strangled, the tonguing is extremely harsh. Therefore, the articulation is just completely shot. It sounds horrific. That is how I play when I'm stressed. I have noticed that some of the things that happen to me when I'm stressed is happening to my students right now. So I thought that that would be something worth talking about with the rest of you, because I'm sure that there are plenty of the rest of you who are watching these videos who are probably feeling it right now. So what exactly do I practice when I'm in this state? What I notice is that I need to have things that I practice that basically force me into like a Zen mode. I need to find something to concentrate on so hard that there's no space left in my head to worry about anything else. It forces all the other thoughts out of your head and you can only focus on the one thing you're doing. Have you noticed that when you play easier things when you're stressed, it just comes out horrific? But if you have to concentrate really hard on something, it actually comes out better. So there are two things that I really like to practice when I am this stressed. Weirdly enough, it's some form of tone development and really difficult technique. That sounds like the weirdest thing to practice when you're really stressed, but let me walk you through it. For tone development requires you to become basically hyper self-aware of what you are doing, because you can't fix anything before you know what you are currently doing. It's a lot of listening to yourself over and over and over again until you can hear the impurities in the sound that you couldn't hear before. I really like to use Trevor Wise Tone Book, page 7. It puts me into this state of there is only the pitch B. That is it. That is the only thing that is happening right now. That is the only thing I am thinking about. Because the only way that you can get the tone to be better is if you're like one with that note. You cannot think about anything else. There's nothing else you can do. You can only do tone development by only thinking about that one note you're playing. You can't be thinking about dinner. You can't be thinking about what you have to do next. You can't be thinking about your homework. Because if you think about something else while you're doing tone development, you might as well not be doing the tone development because you're not paying attention to what you're actually doing. I will also do a lot of harmonics as part of my tone work because, again, you have to concentrate like crazy on what you're playing. Ideally, you're trying to make them almost indistinguishable from like the real fingerings of those particular notes. It just puts me in a state of like only listening to sound. It's relaxing because I'm focusing my like scattered brain on the one thing. So the other thing is really difficult technique. I personally love to use the Machiavellian Exercises 2 in Trevor Wise technique book. You cannot play it without focusing on it 100%. They're basically mind twisters. The fingerings are so awkward that you have to be like 110% there. It does the same thing as a tone development for me. It just forces me into this state of complete zen where I'm only thinking about which notes I'm playing, and that's all my brain has room for. It just relaxes me down, and I play with much better tone that way. Ironically, if I'm playing something that's like very expressive, it's very lyrical, there's too much room in my brain, and so I'm still freaking out about, you know, whatever it is I'm freaking out about. And so I end up getting taken out of the moment. I talked with a few of my students about this. Some of them agree that when life throws these kinds of huge curveballs at you and you are that stressed, you're just going to have to accept that for a few months, you're not going to be able to play at your full potential. You're pretty much only going to be able to play at your like near full potential in things that force you to only focus on that one thing. It's just one of those life things, man. You can't really avoid it because life is life. Life happens, things happen, and it does actually affect the way that you play your instrument. I don't think it's fair to criticize yourself too hard when life hits you really hard. Know that it's normal. Just try to find a way to force yourself into the Zen mode. At the very least, it'll feel more satisfying as a practice session, even though everything else may not be at your full potential. I'm not saying that you should give up on yourself when life throws you curveballs. There is a line that you need to draw. At a certain point, you do have to kind of accept that life is hard enough on you right now, and so you can't expect yourself to play at your full relaxed potential. And it's okay. Give yourself time to go through that chapter of your life and come out the other side. In the meantime, don't be too hard on yourself. Try to find ways of practicing that do make you feel fulfilled and puts you in that Zen mode where you can get some stuff done. But beyond that, it's okay. Life happens. That's it for today. I hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments below how life stress affects your playing. I do know that it manifests slightly differently in everyone. That's why I thought I would share with you guys what happens to me. Anyway, if you guys like this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up and hit subscribe for new videos every Saturday, but also hit the bell icon because YouTube is always broken. My last video is playing right here, which I will put a link to up here for you guys. If you want to catch me on my social media, they are listed down below, and you can come hang out with me about every other Friday on Patreon. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Bye. So I'm back with my superior lens because I am now far away enough from the camera. I've upgraded my desk situation. I'm still feeling it out right now, so I will wait a bit longer before I do an updated like online teaching setup. But the gist of it is that now I'm standing like all the time because I realized that a sedentary lifestyle, which I hope I pronounced that right, by the way. I never know how to pronounce that word. Sedentary? I realize that that life is actually highly unhealthy. My career is such that I'm basically stuck in this room doing literally everything. I film in here, I teach in here, I edit in here, I answer emails in here. Like literally my entire career is in this tiny little room. I have basically implemented an entirely new lifestyle. I'm trying to stick to it for at least 2 weeks before I talk more about it on this channel, but it's just so you guys know why things are like looking a little bit different in my videos. It's because I have to basically film in slightly different ways because my setup is all different now. Anyway, that is besides the point. That part is probably going to go, you know, at the end of this video. And the tonguing becomes like my substitute for my support. It gets really intense, really hard, and really thick. That is not what she said.